Amen. I'm going to the book of John, chapter 11. Some of you have not already figured that out. And I know the story of Lazarus is been told. I've heard it all my life, and I'm 40 plus years old. If I say 49, then you automatically start thinking, wow, she's almost 50. I'm not 50 to October, so it's not coming right now. I'm still 49. But this story, I heard a lady preacher preach on this, and it really pierced my heart. And so I've prayed, and there's just a few things that I want to share tonight, and I won't be long. But one of my favorite words, everybody knows what it is. Believe. And he said, we have our house plastered with it. Yes, we do. It's on pillows, it's on wall hangings, it's on little plaques, it's on ornaments, it's on frogs, it's on rocks, it's on almost anything. People give me all kinds of things that say believe. At Christmas, my tree had, I don't know how many believe ornaments on it, and I just love it. But the thing is, do you know what it means to believe? To think that something is true or real. I believe in God's Word. I believe in His healing power. I believe that every promise that He's made is mine and it's yours. I believe in Him. I believe that He's going to do what He said He's going to do. I believe. To have hope, I heard it put this way, it's the simple belief that things will change. And I'm hoping and trusting God in a lot of situations. And I bet if I ask you to raise your hand, which I'm not, many of you would say, I'm hoping. Or I've hoped for so long over this loved one. Or I've hoped for so long over healing. Or I've hoped for this or for that. But I just want to tell you tonight that the Lord wants to resurrect that hope. If it's dormant, if it's died, if it feels like there's no hope at all, yes, there is. Because Jesus is here. I want to go into this story real quickly, and just bear with me. Starting in verse 11. A man named Lazarus was sick. I'm in the New Living Translation. He lived in Bethany with his sisters Mary and Martha. This is the Mary, it says, who poured the expensive perfume, and her brother Lazarus was sick. Verse 3, so the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. If it's time to send a message to Jesus, I think Lazarus' situation had got pretty dire. I think he was at the point of, he may not make it. So we understand the personalities of Mary and Martha, and I'll get to them in just a second. But together they said, we've got to call the Master. Where he is, we're going to send this messenger to him and say, Lazarus is sick. We know you love him. We know you care about us. So would you come? Because he's sick and we need you here. Has any of you ever been in a place where you know there's no one else to call? There's no one else to pick a phone up or to dial or text or do anything except the Master. Because sometimes when the situation is what it is, he's the only one that you can call. He's the only one that you can call out to that's going to come. Verse 4, but when Jesus heard their plea, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. See, he already knew what was going to happen. He was already in there tomorrow.
That's right. Amen.
But yet, when they sent the message, and he knew it was from Mary and Martha, and he knew it was urgent, but yet he said, his sickness is not going to end in death. Why? Because he is resurrection and he is life. There is no death in him.
He's everything we stand in need of.
Amen. So verse 5. So although Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Have you ever felt like you've called him and you've called him and you've called him and he just hasn't come? And the heavens sing brass. You know what I'm talking about? When you go to pray and it feels like your words are just bouncing off the ceiling. And you're like, Lord, I just keep coming. And I just keep coming. And I just keep coming. Rhonda Brown is in Israel right now. And she shared a picture. I didn't have cell phone back in 1988 when I went over there. And she's at the Wailing Wall. And she shared a picture of paper after paper after paper of prayer requests shoved into the cracks of that wall. And when I saw that picture, I couldn't help but cry. Because my paper is in that wall. daddy's name on it. And see, that was an 18-year-old girl putting that paper in that wall in faith. And every year I would pray and I said, God save my daddy, God save my daddy. I was 35 years old when he went to an altar. But my paper from when I was 18 years old is still in that wall because Jesus was coming. He was coming to my need, but it was all in his timing. Oh, y'all, So he stayed there for the next 2 days. Verse 7, finally his disciples says, let's go back. He said to the disciples, let's go back to Judea. And the disciples, they have a flesh reaction more times than I would think if I'm walking with the Master physically, I would be in awe of him, but they had their moments. So his disciples objected. Rabbi, they said, only a few days ago the people back there were trying to stone you, so you're going there again? And Jesus said, he talks about walking in daylight and walking in nighttime. And then verse 11, then he said, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him up. And here they go again. Verse 12, the disciples said, Lord, if he's sleeping, he will soon get better. They thought Jesus meant Lazarus was simply sleeping, but Jesus meant Lazarus had died. So Jesus is not surprised. Remember, he stayed 2 extra days after the plea from the sisters. And he loved his family dearly. He loves you dearly. So if there is a delay in his coming, he's coming. Oh, he's coming. But it may not be in your time frame or how we think. Verse 14, so he told them plainly because they couldn't seem to get it. Lazarus is dead. And for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. I love Jesus. I love how he just goes right to the heart of the matter. And he said, for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now you will really believe. Why? Because he is the life, and he's going to go to that situation, and he's going to reverse every bit of it. Come and let's go see him. So now the disciples, can you just picture them walking with him down the street, and they're like, we're going to go see Lazarus, but he's dead. But the master said he's sleeping. I'm confused because they have flesh fits a lot. And then 16, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let's go to and die with Jesus. I read a commentary on that, and Thomas just knew that they were going to all get stoned. When they go back, they are going to stone them in Judea, and they're just not going to even make it back. Jesus too. So he's just ready to go die with the master. Have you ever wanted to just go, right? You know what I'm talking about. I have children. I'm, of course, not Jaden, but... And sometimes you just want to give a big old, like I could have had a V8 kind of thing. Verse 17, when Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. So, 4 days. In the grave, dead for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles, about 2 miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Mary, Martha, in their loss. When Martha got word that he's coming. Now see, Martha, I've heard her described as a busybody. I've heard her described in many ways that, like, there's no fire under Martha. She's always moving. She's always doing something. And I think that was her personality. Mary, however, was in the house, weeping and mourning, and those were consoling her that were doing that. But Martha heard that he's coming. So Martha goes out to meet the Master. See, Jesus is coming to your need. You need to be watching that dusty road. You need to be ready to meet with the Master because he's coming. Verse 21, Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. See, she had faith that while Lazarus was sick, the Lord could heal him. Right. And see, we have faith when things are going a certain way. Lord, if you'll just intervene right here, everything's going to be all right. But when the situation gets worse or dire, and then you look at this situation and you're like, I don't know. But Martha says something here in verse 22 that I want you to take away from this place tonight. I'm going to repeat what she said. Lord, when she got to Jesus, Lord, if only you'd been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. 4 days in the grave. And then she came up with an even now. So I ask you when you pray, when you go to the Father and you say, Lord, my child is so lost. There's nothing that can be done. I don't even know where they are. Then you have to remember those 4 days for Lazarus, and you have to go even now.
That's right, amen.
That's right.
Come on.
Father God, I believe even though this thing is dead, this thing is buried, and is sitting behind a stone, I know that even now, if you ask God, that He will give you the power to resurrect that thing.
That's right, amen.
Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. He liked the even now. He responds to our faith. Faith is what moves God. And so Martha, she has her moment. She's real even now. And then she goes, yes, He's going to rise when everyone else rises, Lord, at the last day. Even though she believed and she saw the Master and she knew who He was, she still didn't realize that kind of miracle was going to happen right then. Do you know that when you seek the Lord and you call on Him earnestly, I don't care how many days, months, years, weeks it takes, we seek Him until. Everybody say until. You don't seek Him until the end of the week. You don't seek Him until the end of 2020. You don't seek Him until I turn 55, Lord, and after that I'm just going to whatever. We seek Him until He moves. Because He will move. He's faithful. You got to understand, He is the power. He is the resurrection. He is the life. And He's just as powerful today as the day that He stood on that road in Bethany.
That's right. That's right, amen.
So verse 25, Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. It's like Abraham and Isaac. You know, Abraham said, we will go up on the mountain and worship, and we will come back. To the servants that went with them, him and Isaac, we're going to go, we're going to come back. Why? Because Abraham believed that if Isaac was sacrificed on that altar, that God's power was enough to bring that boy back to life because he was a promise. So if you have a promise tonight from the Father, and that promise is long ago, and you've wondered if that promise is going to come to pass, I came by here tonight to tell you that yes, God will do it. If He made you the promise, you can take it to God's spiritual bank. At the end of verse 26, Jesus looks at Martha and says, do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord. And see, this is where I know she had a revelation. Because she said, I have always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come into the world from God. So she knew who He was. But her physical faith, her flesh, I wish I could say that I get up every day and it's like, whoo, Lord, let's go today. All right, we're going to whip the devil. My feet hit the floor, devil. You better be afraid because my feet just hit the floor this morning. We don't always wake up that way.
That's right.
We wake up and you get a text or a phone call before you ever get out of bed. Or you get bad news, or you're hurting, or you know that you got to face financial things, or you got to go to a doctor's appointment that you're afraid of. There's lots of things that we wake up to every day. But you got to trust and realize who He is. It's not just knowing about Him, it's knowing Him. It's knowing Him. It's in relationship with Him. He's my everything. When I lay down at night, when I rise in the morning, He is everything. Take this whole world, but give me Jesus.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus. Yes.
Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
So then I think He told her, it's time to go get Mary. Because see, the miracle would not have been complete if Mary had been sitting in the house. And Martha had been with Him on the road, and He just took Martha to the tomb. It wouldn't have been a complete miracle, I don't think, because Mary and Martha, the two that sent for Him, Mary and Martha both had to be there when the miracle happened. So He sends for her. So she after realizing he's here. He's here. Runs and goes and gets Mary. She called her aside from the mourners and said, the teacher is here and he wants to see you. So what did Mary do? She immediately got up and went to Jesus. He's still standing in the same spot Martha left him in. But I know that Martha left him with expectancy. I know when Jesus said, you need to go get Mary. She's probably like, okay, I'm going to go get Mary. Back to the house to get Mary. And Mary, come here. The teacher's calling for you. Come. And so Mary goes right then because they loved Jesus and they were in a relationship with Jesus and they knew him. So Mary went to him. Now he stayed outside the village at the place where Martha met him. And when the people who were at the house consoling her saw her leave so fast, they assumed she's going to the grave to weep. So they followed her there. I think about the mourners, when the little girl had died and Jesus said she's just sleeping, and he went in the room and took just the few disciples with him, and he had to put all the people outside.
Right.
Sometimes I just have to get along with the Lord. And you have to put the phone outside, cut the TV off, put the noise away, and just get by yourself for a minute so you can call on the Lord without distraction. Their mourning was justified. I mean, these people really love this family. But I believe sometimes that you can mourn so long that your faith starts to just waver. And you can mourn over a thing so long that you really don't think that thing could ever have anything come back to life in it at all. Verse 32, when Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. Those words sound familiar. That's the very words from Martha. They both knew that he had the power to intervene before death. But now their faith gets tested. Do you believe I am the resurrection? Do you believe this, Martha? Do you believe I'm the resurrection and the life? So I ask you tonight, do you believe that he is? Do you believe that he can do anything? The Bible says in Mark 9:23, if you believe, all things are possible to him who believes.
Right.
It's not just a word on a piece of wood in my house. It's the heartbeat of who I am. I believe him and I take him at his word. Therefore, I can walk through whatever I have to face, and so can you.
Yes, that's right.
Verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping, and he saw the other people wailing with her. This version says a deep anger, but he was deeply troubled within himself. And he said, where have you put him? He already knew where he was. I think he had to direct everybody's attention to the point of the resurrection. I think he had to just turn them all to that place. So they told him, Lord, come and see. And then Jesus wept. He wept. Jesus was filled with compassion. Let me tell you, when you go through things and you hurt and you don't know how you're going to get through it, he is moved with the feelings of your infirmities. He is moved by your tears. He is moved by your prayers. He is moved by your faith. I love Jesus. Sometimes I think, Lord, I wish I could have just walked with him when he was here. Of course, we will one day, because I just love him. I can't, that sounds so simple and so elementary, but it's just the truth. If you can't love him more than anything else and put him first and realize who he is everything.
Right.
He is peace to a troubled mind. He is healing to a sick body. He is restoration to a marriage or to a situation that has just died. He is everything.
Right.
He is salvation for a prodigal child.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. That's the truth.
He is everything. He is everything. And when you don't know what to say, and you don't have the eloquent words to pray, all you have to do is call his name.
Right.
And the atmosphere will change.
Amen. Thank you for your presence. Oh, we thank you for your presence.
The people who were standing nearby said, "See how much he loved him." Even they saw his compassion. But then there's always some who always have to be negative Nancy. I hope I don't have a Nancy here. That's the only N word I can think of. And they said, verse 37, "This man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying?" Yeah, he could have come right then. When the girl sent for him, he could have come right then and not stayed 2 days extra and then made the journey and been 4 days late. But see, he really wasn't. Because he said from the very front that all of this would give glory to God. This wasn't about healing a sick man. This was about God getting glory and people seeing God do the miraculous, and then people would believe. So that is why I pray for miracles, signs, and wonders here. Because when it's not if he's going to do it, it's when God does. He's already started. This morning was significant. And this morning there was young people up to senior adults down here across this altar praying. And the Lord did significant things in hearts and lives and minds today. The enemy did not want this day to happen. But people were here by divine assignment. And seeds that were planted will go with them outside those double doors into the world this week, and they're going to remember this morning. They're going to remember. God is moving. And don't you know that when he moves here and he does miracles, when my sweet sister gets out of that chair, I've already seen it in my spirit, and I shared that with them privately, or I wouldn't tell you that. I believe he's going to do it. It's the same God who saved my father 35 years. If you're tired of hearing me tell it, I'm so sorry. This may be Q-tip time, because I will never stop talking about God saving my daddy. I sent him a letter. My daddy's not an emotional man. And I shared this with a lady not long ago because it was relevant for the situation. And I cried, and I typed it, and I sent it, and the last thing I told him, I said, "Don't make me go to heaven without you." So whatever loved one that you have that's lost, just pray and ask the Lord how you can reach them.
That's right.
But reach them in love, reach them with the word, and reach them in truth. I keep reaching toward my baby boy. I keep reaching because I know that God's going to save him. Little nuggets of things he'll say lets me know God's working. And I could say to the Lord, if you had only been here at such and such time in his life and done this or that, then these things wouldn't have happened. But Lord, I can also say, even now, I believe. Do you believe? Verse 38, I'm almost through. Jesus was still groaning. He was still deeply moved as he arrived at the tomb, a cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. "Roll the stone aside," Jesus told them. And then my sweet little Martha, she protested, because she goes back to thinking here instead of in faith. And so she tells him, "He's been dead for 4 days, Lord. He smells pretty bad." There's that 4 days again. Looking through physical eyes, Lord, Jesus, come on, he stinks. He's been in there 4 days. The body is starting to decompose. And Jesus said, "Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe?" So then I think Jesus just looked at him and said, roll the stone. Let's go. Let's roll the stone. I'm reminded in Isaiah, I think it's 43, where he says you'll go through the waters, but they won't overtake you. You're not going to drown. You go through the fire, and the fire won't burn you. See, Lazarus was dead. 4 days, dead. And yes, he was smelling. I mean, it's just the way it goes. Then I'm reminded of some Hebrew boys who were thrown into a fiery furnace. And the fire was heated 7 times hotter than normal. And so Nebuchadnezzar throws the 3 Hebrew boys in because they will not bow. But if you keep reading in that story, when they come out, their clothes are not burned, their hair is not singed, and there is not the smell of smoke on them. Why? Because there was a 4th man walking in the fire. Let me tell you, when Lazarus comes out in just a minute, he may come out bandaged in some linen cloths or whatever they had him in, but I guarantee you when they unwrapped him, he didn't smell at all like a dead man. And his flesh was restored better than it's ever been before, because that's how my Jesus does it. Then Jesus looked to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I said it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here, all these mourners and wailers and all these people, and Mary and Martha, so that they will believe you sent me. And then the line that everybody loves, Carmen wrote a song called Lazarus Come Forth, and I love it. If you've ever heard, anybody ever heard that song back from the 80s? And you know, Lazarus goes on to heaven in the song, and he's chatting with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and David, and Ezekiel, and he's talking, and then he's like, yes, that's like think I hear him calling me now. And then, of course, Jesus only calls him the once. Carmen made a cute song, but he made a point. But then Jesus shouted in verse 43, with all of these people standing here, and I'm sure there was a crowd, and they're all looking at him like, what is he doing? He has rolled that stone away, and that dead man has been in there 4 days, and in a minute we're going to smell the stench of the death that's in that thing. But let me tell you, when he went up to that thing and said, roll that stone away, that when he spoke, Lazarus, come forth, death had to let go, and Lazarus had to get up, and I think the angels were there, and I think they loosened his bands, and he might have been wrapped real tight like this, but I think they just loosened some and said, come on, buddy, come on. So he gets up, and then he walks out, and he's still bandaged, and Jesus says, unwrap him and let him go. Let me tell you something. If you have a thing that has died, if you have something that has died, I want you just in faith to camp out in front of that thing and to go to the Father every day and say, Lord, I believe. I'm going to stand here. This thing represents my child that's lost, or this sickness that won't leave my body. It represents this thing that has been so stinchy and so bad and so ugly in my life for so long. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to pray day after day after day after day after day until you move. And I'm going to pray even now. Oh God, I believe. Do you believe? Do you believe that even though whatever it is in your life that's hopeless and dead and there's no life in it, it's time to resurrect hope in your heart and believe God and take Him at His word?
Yes, that's right. Amen.
This thing is falling apart. But he's right, I have held this Bible, I have caressed it, I have hugged it when there was nothing else I could do. There was no more prayers to pray, and there was no song to sing, and there was nothing else I could say to make a situation better. But I would just cling to His word and say, Lord, I believe. I believe, I believe. Even now, God, even though this thing is so dead and so bad, I believe, God, that you're going to speak life back to my life.
That's right, amen.
No matter how long it takes, don't ever stop believing. Don't ever give up. Don't ever give in. How do you believe when your hope is in a tomb? How do you keep doing that? How do I keep believing for these things when it seems like everything that I'm praying for is just so bad? How do I keep doing that? His word, my prayer closet, trusting Jesus when my eyes can't see, trusting Him when I don't know what else to do. You know Martha questioned where he was when Lazarus died. You know she probably had a flesh fit. Where is He? Have you done that? I have. Lord, where were you?
Yes.
Where were you? If you had just been here. But see, that's just the beauty. He walked with them in a physical body, but see, he's with us always. He said he's with us to the end of the world, and those who endure to the end shall be saved.
Yes.
I want you to remember something. Jesus was always coming to Mary and Martha. He was never not coming. He was always coming. It wasn't in their time frame. It was in his. Why? So the Son of God could receive glory. So if your prayers and the answers have been delayed, understand he's coming. He's coming.
That's right. That's right.
He's coming. Somebody needs to hear me. He's coming.
That's right.
When Lazarus came out of that tomb, Martha's faith became sight. What she had believed for but thought it was impossible, the resurrection and the life came to the situation, called him out, and Lazarus came forth, and her faith that my brother will live again became sight.
That's right.
When my daddy got saved, my faith became sight.
That's right.
When God has healed your body, or he's given you a financial miracle, or he's touched a loved one, that's when your faith becomes sight, because that's when you see he's done it.
That's right. Absolutely.
Tiffany's baby girl, and I said this at the shower yesterday, it's answered prayer. You can't look at it and say anything else other than that God answered their prayers in his timing. Don't you know how much he loves you? He loves you so much. Would you stand? Understand that you're closer now to your miracle than you've ever been. You just have to believe. Time can cause you to feel numb and cause you to feel like, I just don't know if I have it in me to believe for this anymore. You get tired. You get tired in your spirit, man. You get tired in your flesh. And sometimes the enemy just whispers in your ear, just give up. Just quit. It's not worth the fight. They're not going to make it anyway. They're not going to live. This ain't going to resurrect. There's no hope for this. Those are lies from the devil. Because if you believe in this word and you believe in Jesus, then you already know he is the resurrection and he is the life. He said, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden with burdens, and he will give you rest. It's not rest like the world gives. It's rest in him. It's when you lay your head down tonight and you can lay down in peace because you know he's got you. And you know that he's moving in your situation. And you know that he's going to heal your body. And you know he's going to reach that loved one. And you know that he's coming. Do you believe that he's coming? Are you looking for it? Let's pray. Father,